What's going on, everybody? Thank you for being in attendance to this wonderful opportunity that we have here at Bravery Buds Dialogues. We have some amazing people here with great expertise in their specific fields. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves and talk about what all they have going on, especially here in the cannabis space and in Dallas specifically. My name is Corey Milsap. I am one of the board members of Hemp for Victory, one of the founding members for the Cannabruhz, one of the co-founders of Harvestia Financial Consulting. I'm actively serving in the reserve, so Captain Promotable soon, hopefully in the next month. Cross your fingers. I'll make major, or I'll pin major, I should say. And I'll be an official field grade officer, father of two, and a husband to an amazing wife who I got to give a special shout out to for allowing me to be here today. So with that said, I'm going to sit my butt down and I'm going to pass it to this gentleman, Robert Head.
Hey, thanks a lot, Corey. Well, my name's Robert Head. I'm one of the founders for Hemp for Victory, and we're a 501c3 that's dedicated to raising awareness about cannabis in the veteran community and all the positive aspects that it helps us with. So I am today here in Dallas, Texas, and here in Dallas, Texas, they're going to have a vote coming up called Prop R, and Prop R is to decriminalize marijuana here in the streets of Dallas. Well, what's really interesting about this is that Texas, and I'm a Texan, I'm sixth generation. My kids are seventh generation, so I've been here for a bit. I'm a rare breed. But I'll tell you this, Dallas has got 1.8 million veterans, and 42,000 of them live in the city of Dallas. Now, cannabis has been one of those medications that you've seen for the longest time veterans use in most every war that we've ever fought, right? That we can even tell. We even know it all the way back to World War I and World War II. In Vietnam, we saw a very big surge of cannabis being used by vets on many occasions and through all the protests. I mean, you can just Google it and you're going to find all sorts of information on it. So how come veterans tend to veer more towards this drug than anybody else? Well, over time, we've learned that this drug is actually a great thing for your body because you have an cannabinoid system, which that's all its plants made up of. So now we know that veterans are using it more so than anybody else. But a disturbing study came out about in 2017 called Operation Deep Dive, which was actually put on by Bayer, and they worked with this group on Operation Deep Dive. And what they did is that we all remember the 22 a day. The 22 a day was based off of about 1,200 to 1,500 combat service members that had served active military and or reserves when fought and came back. So they were considered a veteran. But what we wind up doing is they expanded those parameters, and they said, now we're going to include anybody that served and got out honorably and may have been, doesn't matter if they were deployed or not, but they served honorably and got out. Then that number jumped from 22 to 44 because there were 850 individuals they were able to study. Now, that's a huge number. And those numbers revolve majority around suicides and overdoses. Most of the suicides are either due to an onset of medication that's brought them to a breaking point and or PTSD, but there's multiple reasons for this. When we see studies of cannabis in veterans, we see a drop in suicides, a drop in prescriptions. So when we have a vote in Dallas where a decriminalization of a plant that a lot of veterans are using, we even, as far as seeing the VFWs and American Legions vending machines for Delta 8 and Delta 9. So does decriminalization benefit the community more so than criminalization? I'm going to say that it does. But today, I got a very good friend of mine, Danny Clancy here. He's been in the law business for about 30 years, and he knows a lot about the criminalization in Dallas of cannabis. And we're going to talk a lot about how that affects the residents.
Robert, thank you very much. Corey, thank you. Thank you for having me here tonight, and thank you for your service. Robert, thank you for your service. Thank you for inviting me to be here tonight. I just a little bit about me, my background that ties me into the discussion tonight. As you mentioned, I'm an attorney and practice law and have been practicing law for a little over 30 years now. And my entire background and experience from day one out of law school has been involved in the criminal justice system. I began my career in the Dallas County District Attorney's Office. I was a prosecutor for approximately 5 years, left the District Attorney's Office, was in private practice for a short period of time, and then ran for judge and was elected to one of the county criminal courts here in Dallas County. And I served as a criminal court judge here in Dallas until 2007. I was a criminal court judge for 8 years. And so the types of cases that I presided over, all criminal. And in the beginning, I was presiding over misdemeanor level offenses, including possession of marijuana offenses. And in 2005, I was appointed by then Governor Perry to a newly created district bench and became judge and presided over Criminal District Court number 6, which is a court that has felony jurisdiction. So I went from presiding over misdemeanor level offenses to presiding over felony level offenses. And as I said, I presided over these matters, including marijuana offenses, all sorts of drug type offenses for 8 years. In 2007, I went into private practice, and I currently today maintain my practice, the law office of Daniel Clancy, and I am a criminal defense attorney. So I have prosecuted these cases, I have presided over these cases, and today, and for the last several years, since 2007, I've been representing people who find themselves in the crosshairs of law enforcement and find themselves in trouble as a criminal defense attorney.
So in the city of Dallas, residents that are coming through, if you're coming in and visiting the city of Dallas, you go down to Deep Ellum, if you're going to carry any kind of cannabis on you, what is the limit? And what should a person know when they're in the city of Dallas about a decriminalization?
The fact of the matter is, decrim or not, possession of marijuana is a crime. And there is no amount that I can point to and say to you that if you have a joint on you or a gram or an ounce or 2 ounces, that this amount or a lesser amount is going to allow you to avoid prosecution if, in fact, you're caught in possession of it. It is a crime. You can be prosecuted for possessing any amount of usable quantity of marijuana. And if the decriminalization passes, then basically what it's saying, and other cities in Texas have already passed it, what it is saying is that Dallas police officers are no longer allowed to arrest or cite anybody that they come in contact with who is possessing an amount of marijuana equal to or less than 4 ounces. But it is still illegal, and I do point out when I talk to people about this subject, oftentimes it comes up, it's legal in Colorado, it's legal in California, it's legal in Oklahoma. These states where marijuana has been legalized have done exactly that. The states have legalized it. but it still remains illegal on the federal level.
I wanted to get Triste, I can't even roll my tongue like that. Yes, Triste. Her take on it, because I know she's put a lot of sweat equity into advocating for Prop R. So I just want to, what was your passion getting into it, and just talk about it from your standpoint.
Thank you. So for anyone wondering, my name is Triste Ordex. My pronouns are she, ella. I'm a Marine Corps veteran, and I served as the campaign manager for the Dallas Freedom Act. So when Ground Game Texas brought this campaign here to Dallas, when I interviewed, even when I had first heard about the job, it came from a friend of mine who I do some local work with here in Dallas. And he was like, this campaign's perfect for you because my reason for starting to use marijuana is because, like Robert was saying, I went through a time in my life where I didn't have the best control over my mental health. And I had 2 suicide attempts 3 months apart. And I started to go on medication to try to help be able to manage my mental health. And for about 2 years, through almost 3 years, I tried to kind of figure out what that balance was with medication, because I don't like to just put anything in my body. I don't even like to take ibuprofen because I like to be very careful. And I had a lot of friends that had told me that I should try marijuana, especially for my insomnia. And I finally did. And the thing that I share with a lot of people is how life-changing it was for me. As a veteran, I think about how I've had to make sure that I am in my best mental state to be able to advocate for the things that we have to struggle through as veterans, and especially me very uniquely as a woman veteran. It's a lot different. My needs are different than these guys a lot of times, and a lot of times I don't have access to that health care or to those needs that I need that I need met as a woman veteran. And then the other thing I think about is how I need to have my mental health as intact as possible, because I'm a mother. I'm a single parent. I am the sole provider for my son. I am the head of household in my family. And I think about how marijuana has been so essential in my recovery with my struggles with mental health. And when this campaign came up, for me, those were the things that I thought about. I share with folks very often about how an interaction with the police can cause a lot of different things in my personal life, as a business owner, as a mother, as a daughter, as a sister, as a member of the community, and the things that I do here in my own neighborhood of Oak Cliff that I would not be able to do if I was hit with a fine or if I was incarcerated for any reason, And so when I found out everything that this was going to be able to do, I was like, damn, this is going to be one of the greatest campaigns I will ever manage. And it has been. But it was also a challenge. It was a challenge to be able to go out and educate individuals about what Prop R, what the Dallas Freedom Act is going to do. It was a challenge to be able to talk to folks that do not believe it. They don't vote for people because they have lost trust in the people that are elected. But to be able to tell them, this is something that us as voters, we have control over. If we vote for it and we pass this, it goes into effect. We don't have to wait for some politician to keep their promises, because this is about the people. And that's, I think, the most beautiful thing about this is, as someone that has been doing electoral work for years and kind of fell into this work, I think about what this has, the hope that this has given people. One, knowing that they will not be targets of the police with something like this. It'll lessen those things. The other is to be able to feel safe if they decide that they want to light one up. For me, I I don't ever hide that I use marijuana to manage my mental health, but I also use marijuana for shits and giggles, because sometimes, you know, like people want to throw back a little beer. I want to throw me one in the backyard and just chill out. And I think that for whatever reason anybody wants to use marijuana, whether it's just to take a load off, whether it's just to enjoy a good laugh with friends, whether it is to be able to manage what it is that they need, their pain. I think about my mom and how she uses CBD to be able to manage her pain. And those are the things that I think about when I think about passing something like Prop R. It's so important. It's important that we tell everybody in our community. And the thing that I've expressed to the people that I know that are involved in this is find 5 people that you know that don't traditionally go out to vote. This is about them. This is about making sure that, one, they regain a little bit of trust in the system and the electoral system to continue to get involved. This is a practice run. Let's continue to do it so that way we can pass this in other cities too, the way we've done it in Austin, the way our neighbors did it in Denton, and the way that we hope to do it in other cities, and send a message to our state that this is just the beginning of what we want to do. And anybody that wants to get involved with us with Ground Game Texas, or even with Hemp for Victory, we want to encourage folks to get involved, because this is a cause definitely worth fighting for and getting involved with.
And do they have to be residents? Check. Do they have to be residents of Dallas, or can they be in the DFW area? Who can get out there and vote for this?
So anyone that is a registered voter in the city of Dallas, they had to have been registered already by October 7th, because the deadline to register to vote has passed. But anyone that is registered to vote and their address is Dallas, Texas, on their driver's license or what have you, they're the ones that are eligible to vote for this. It'll be on the bottom of your ballot. You'll see a bunch of other propositions, but Prop R is the one that you want to focus on. And for us, you brought up some great examples of propositions that we also need to be sure we're paying attention to. ST and U, there's been raising the alarm about these specific propositions and what they would do to hurt our city finances. And what Prop R is going to do is it's also going to save us millions of dollars. And that's what we want. We want to save money so that we can reinvest it in the community, so that places here in Oak Cliff, like Martin Weiss Park, that we have a pool. Because just up the street in Kidd Springs, there's one up there. And we want to make sure that the communities here that need those resources are getting them. We're not criminalizing people for minor possessions of weed.
So that's good one. Studies come out all the time when we cross the cannabis industry about, what in generations likes to do what. I'm old school Gen X, right? I'm packing a bowl, heading out back. That's my thing. The younger generations tend to like vapes and also edibles. So let's say you're busted and you have paraphernalia, a pipe, but nothing else. Or you have gummies, or you have a vape pen. Does Prop R also include these types of elements?
Prop R only targets, only refers to marijuana and those amounts that are equal or less than 4 ounces. So there is a provision in Prop R that says that police officers cannot cite an individual for possession of paraphernalia in lieu of an arrest or a citation for possession of marijuana. That's referenced in Prop R. So basically what it does is it eliminates arrests and citations for any amount of marijuana under 4 ounces, and it also eliminates citations for possession of paraphernalia at the same time. And other than that, you bring up a really good point, and something that as a criminal lawyer, I'm going to be real interested to see how this is going to play out. But eliminating the plain smell test, which is what we call it. A police officer comes in contact with you and smells marijuana emanating from your person or vehicle. That gives them probable cause to then search you and those places around you, including your vehicle, that are on or about your person. And that has been upheld by the United States Supreme Court. So to have a city charter or proposition be favored and voted on and accepted that runs afoul of federal law and Supreme Court precedent is going to it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
So that brings up two questions. So one, so the education aspect of it, right? Because I know I was just at an event yesterday in Austin, and the conversation topic was, well, one, people didn't want to say marijuana, they wanted to say cannabis due to the racial stigma of the word marijuana. But in addition to that, then there's also hemp, right? And so with hemp being, it's a clear defining definition of hemp and marijuana, what if, like, how are the cops going to be educated enough? No, not just the cops, but you know what I'm trying to say. But how are they going to be educated enough to know that, hey, no, this was a pre-roll that I got that I legally purchased and I can consume. You smell it on me. How is the law enforcement going to be able to determine if it's hemp and or marijuana?
Yeah, the right, Prop R says that no city funds can be used or spent to test THC when there's a law enforcement contact with an individual who's in possession of an amount less than 4 ounces. Police officers are, they do have special training to do the job that they do, but they're still people at the end of the day. And when you look at hemp and you look at marijuana, both cannabis sativa cousins, they look alike, they smell the same, and there's no way to know by looking at it with the naked eye whether one is illegal or not. So we're going to continue to see problems in this area wherein individuals who are going about their business and believe that they're involved in a legal activity, the possession of a hemp-derived substance, are being arrested. And the only way that matter eventually gets resolved is through the court system and through testing, and eventually there's a lab result that comes out that says is at or above 0.3% delta 9 THC concentration. And if it is, it's illegal. If it's not illegal.
It's just interesting because the damage is done for that individual already. And so it's like so you're guilty to proven innocent in that sense.
Yeah, it's the old saying, I fought the law and the law won. You're not gonna win. You might ultimately be vindicated. Could win the war, let's say, but you're not gonna win those battles along the way that's caused you to be arrested, that caused you to have to hire an attorney, that cause you to spend the kind of money that you're going to have to spend to be vindicated.
So I have a question. This kind of leads into Dr. Rozier, who's here. We'll talk to him about the pain management, and I'm going to tell you too that this is one of the more important topics. I always like having Dr. Rozier because he can talk about pain management, and what we were just talking about was delivery systems and how important those delivery systems are, because everybody's a little bit different, right? You might have a patient that's kind of like me. He's old school, stubborn as hell. What he's going to do? He's going to walk outside and smoke a bowl. That's just what you're going to do. You're not going to get Robert to do anything different. Now, these kind of delivery systems, whether there's hemp or marijuana, we currently are in the legislative process of 2025, and according to them, they're looking to ban hemp-derived medication or hemp-derived products. If this happens, how does that affect decriminalization? I mean, now we're really confused about you can't have hemp, but now you can have marijuana. We won't do anything about it, but where does this? It starts to become very gray and not so much black and white any longer if they do this. Would you agree?
I don't know if it's a conflict. It's the bans that I think is being discussed that our legislature is going to take up in the next session. And my uneducated or educated guess or speculation is there's going to be a full court press put on by our lieutenant governor to make sure that Delta 8, Delta 10, Delta O, THCA, all of these cannabinoids that are some totally synthetic, some partially synthetic, if they cause and create any sort of intoxicating effect, I do believe that our lieutenant governor is going to really press hard to make sure that legislation passes that pulls those products from the market.
And that's a shame because a lot of veterans out there rely on these types of products. It's an easy access, whereas teacup's not necessarily an easy access. It requires far more to do. You got to plan your day out. You ever gone to the VA down in South Dallas? If you have, you know what it's like to plan your whole damn day out. Don't you know what I'm talking about? I do know. Cool. And it's the same thing with teacup, whereas you used to be able to just, everybody in the other states can go down to a dispensary. And today I got Dr. Rozier here with me, and he has Dr. Rozier is a pain management doctor who graduated from Boston University. Are you upset with the Yankees and how they're kept?
I mean, come on, I'm a Jersey guy, dude. I'm a South Jersey. I'm a Philly fan. So
there you go.
So I'm sad. I'm sad all around right now in every sport. I can't even talk to me. And that's the intro. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry. So I'm Dr. Antonio Rozier. I'm a sports and spine doctor here, but I am heavily involved here in cannabis movement, and I also have a company called Arc Medical where we prescribe patients medical marijuana under the Compassionate Use Act, and also a new venture that me and my partner are diving into right now with our own products and backing up medically based products that are hemp derived, fortunately. But so we'll see how that goes. But it's called All Things Earth, where we are kind of pushing more plant medicine, and I'm trying to get patients to really understand that there's other ways to kind of heal yourself with nature and different kinds of medicine and foods. So yeah, but and I'm really here because we need to get this thing going, and I'm tired of sitting around waiting for this thing to happen here in Texas.
So I have a question from a patient's perspective. How do you approach a patient in Texas when you want to recommend cannabis as an alternative for pain?
Yeah, I mean, usually for me, mostly, most of my patients that I get, the amount of medications people are usually on. Usually someone, especially with, anything, like, so you have a patient that has, all of a sudden they can't sleep, right? So, or let's say someone's tired, right? So they get anxiety. So someone now is like going, I don't know, Ritalin or something like that, to relax them. But now they can't sleep. So now they get put on anti-anxiety medicine. And now the anxiety medicine affects their mentation. So now they're on antidepressant. And so it's a snowball effect. And I have people from 25 to 98 on like multiple medications. So usually at first it's a conversation like, look, you're on way too much medicine. Let's look at something that can help you in all aspects of your life, that has way less side effects, that has way less addictive tendencies, way less physical dependence, and let's try it, And so the majority of them, most people are very willing to try. I will say this, most people don't want to be on a lot of drugs. Like, I think that's a stereotype of people. Like, most people don't want to be on pain medicine.
Do you find that people that have been on pain medicine for a long time, because this is what happened to me, when I was on them for a while, I realized the drag out it felt on my body. Like I felt like my body would sometimes be pulled like taffy. And I think when you go through that, that's when you realize there's got to be a better option. And you're almost to the point where if you're going to your services that they'll try almost anything else.
I mean, for the most part, these medicines make you feel bad, right? Opiates, most people get itchy, they get super tired. The only thing that happens is your body just gets used to it. Like, you're still not normal, all the nerve medication that slows you down. Most of the nerve medicines were like old anti-seizure medications. So your brain slows down. The anti-anxiety medicines like the benzos, like Ativan and Xanax, you also aren't awake for those either, right? And so, unfortunately, right now in Western medicine, I had this other podcast like a couple weeks ago. I was talking about just medicine and Western medicine. The original purpose of medication was to be like a stop point for us just to momentarily help symptoms. And then we're supposed to fix the problem. But what it evolved to is like medicine now just treats problems. We don't get to the bottom of anything. We just treat problems with medication, and no one ever gets better. No one improves anything. But we've seen time and time again, like with cannabis, with me and my clients, is that almost everybody, if they're off the medicine, they cut down the medication. Almost everybody does. Because they want to. And now they have something for their anxiety, for their sleep, for their pain, for their headaches, for their depression. Again, the compassionate use program here, even though it's still limited, we have a ton of PTSD. We have a ton of cancer. We got a lot. We have Parkinson's. I have every single probably patient, every single category that we can do here in Texas. That's neurological, basically. MS, Parkinson's. We have them all.
What kind of reduction in pills do you see?
Yeah, I see on average. So what happens is cannabis will potentiate or make the effect of the medicine be stronger and last longer. So almost everybody cuts back on their opiates. I say at least on average, I'd say 40%, 30 to 40%. And that's like a disaverage because everybody I take is not taking a bunch of oxycodone or 100. They've been taking 2 or 3 a day, right? Then I got some people on more long-term things like, long-acting meds like morphine and like Dilaudid and fentanyl patches, right? And I get calls all the time. People like, I'm tired of this fentanyl patches. Because we know fentanyl, the problem is today, but originally, we prescribe it. As a doctor, you can't prescribe it as a pill or, it's only injectable in the hospital. It's a patch, right? It's a very addictive patch. And I used to hate prescribing. I haven't prescribed maybe in 3 years. I stopped before this whole pandemic thing started because I hated seeing how my patients looked. Usually they're like, oh, knocked out. They look like they're on drugs. You see them most times. I had one patient who actually was addicted to the fentanyl patches, and she ended up in the ICU. And I got a phone call because they couldn't figure out what was going on with her. They checked her bowels, her bladder, blood pressure, and she kept coding in the ICU. And I was like, check her mouth. They checked her mouth. They swiped it. She had 375 mic patches in her gums. You know what I'm saying? And so those kind of people, but they get so dependent on these drugs though. And so we have patients who straight up stop taking pain meds. We have cancer patients, right, Kenny, who, let's say, I think about, I have a stage 4 colon cancer patient, stage 4, who just takes cannabis, just takes their tincture, and that's all they need, Or I got patients that have pancreatic cancer, which is terrible, and things like lung cancer, brain cancers. They're taking cannabis, maybe 1 or 2 pills a day for pain, which is way more controllable than taking 4 to 6 or 8,
When you have a lot of pills, I would think it'd be hard to almost keep that in order because you can't mix certain pills and, you got to be very organized. Now, you can talk to my wife. I'm not organized. And I would think to myself, dead serious, I'm bad at taking pills. And that's scary the older I get because now I'm thinking to myself, shit, one of these days I'm going to be on them. So when you cut down that amount of pills, that's an amazing drop. My question is, does the teacup program adequately help patients enough? And if not, what kind of corrections from the doctor's perspective needs to be done?
Well, one, I'm getting tired of not being able to prescribe it for what I want to prescribe it for. We have way more proper diagnoses and just these major issues. Like, I mean, the fact that I can't prescribe for headaches for people with like anorexia who can't eat. I can't prescribe for regular depression, regular anxiety, regular sleep. Like, just people just can't go to sleep. I can't, just this nausea, those kind of things that we know, the simple symptoms that we know helps immediately. That's what stirs it the most. Like, you have to have multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's and PTSD, because most people have anxiety. Most people do, but most people don't have the diagnosis of PTSD. That's the problem. And or even depression, we need to, so that's an issue. This whole no flour thing is an issue. This whole, the 1% is bothering me because these people can't drink and eat that much oil. Like, if you're average, those bottles are like 10 milligrams for every cc or full, kind of full dropper full, that's only 10 milligrams. So if your average person's taking 40 to 50 a day, some people are taking 20, but most people take like 30 milligrams a day, right? You're gonna take 3 full droppers of just oil. Everybody can't take that either. What if you have a stomach cancer? What if you get super nauseous, and it doesn't work as fast too, right? So so we know that like vaping and inhalation and aerosols are better. Now we have like topicals, we have suppositories, but it's just so limited in that respect, And then also that rule about them delivering it, how they can't keep it, So I have older patients who don't have cars, who can't get to these places. We have 2 dispensaries, both in Austin, so either they have to get delivered to them. And most, honestly now, Texas Original and Good Blends are not delivering everywhere. Most people have to pick it up. So I have these older patients with no cars who barely come see me, have to drive, from, Grand Prairie to Fort Worth or whatever to get their medication because we can't deliver it to them.
To 10.
One of the things you're not seeing nearly enough is CMEs for medicine, for nurses, and also in medical schools. So when you were in Boston University, did you ever have a single class about cannabinoids?
We're going way beyond. Doctors don't even learn about nutrition and fitness in med school, right? You're talking about something beyond Western medicine right now. You're talking about a whole different change in the whole medical education system that was built upon pharmacologics. Like, literally, plant meds was taken out for that purpose. Like, when Carnegie was like, hey, I own these med schools, you guys will no longer learn about plants and roots anymore. That's like one of the things. So we don't learn about anything natural in med school, right? Like, we didn't learn about anything about, like, there was no maybe nutrition was like a half a day. I know you had to test on that, right? That's why your doctor doesn't know about food and vitamins, and like they run the same tests and they don't know what to do, and that's why they're probably out of shape, and definitely not probably in shape, your doctor, most times, right? So let's talk about just wellness in general. We don't learn that. Now you're gonna add cannabis to this? It's a hard, and problem with doctors is that, like, because we're so-called experts, a lot of times, like, you think to yourself, these doctors go, well, if I didn't learn it, this must not be right. People aren't open to learning. I had trouble talking to doctors about it now, who I work with. I've given books to people like, look, it's okay to do, and they're still against it, I think once it becomes legal, though, if it does, I hope that they'll be learning. I think the younger generation of doctors are going to be the ones who really get more of it. Like, because, the same way they have, like, cannabis, majors now, things like that, I would hope that that'll become maybe a part of the pharmacological, like, knowledge base in med school. Talk about doctors now, it's going to be really hard to do.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
What you're saying about that? Fight you for the mic. No, and I think the one thing that keeps coming up here as a common theme is the education piece. With me, like, I'm a community activist, like, that's what I do. I work in electoral politics, trying to educate people on voting. And I think about specifically, like, my own family, being Latina, daughter of immigrants. A lot of times the conversations at home are like, no estés fumando marihuana, don't be smoking weed, or don't smoke mota or whatever, because you don't want to bring the police to your home. You don't want to bring any attention to the family, especially when you have undocumented people in the home. And me being the oldest of 7, I think about the marijuana culture within the Latina community and how my family engaged with that, and then now how my generation, how I'm engaging with it, and my son. So when I started using marijuana, I had a very frank conversation with my son. He was 14 years old, and I was like, I was on 7 different medications, and it was hard for me to keep track. It was affecting my mental health more than it was helping me. And I remember sitting down with my son, because one, these kids aren't stupid. Like, well, I'm gonna hide the smell of weed from my kid and I'm on the porch smoking that shit. Like, let's be real. And I think having very frank conversations, one with our kids, like you talked about how, like, your children are growing up around this, and destigmatizing that conversation at home. I have 3 generations of my family living in my home: my mom, me, and my son. And my mom is starting to use cannabis products for her fibromyalgia because she has so much pain in her body. And I think to myself, I'm like, shit, I can already, at 42 years old, I feel the impacts of my service in the military on my body. I'm sure y'all do. And again, coming back to my body's different than y'all's. I think about carrying those packs and chasing recruits and having to put all of that fucking weight on my hips and how that shit hurts. Not to mention, I had a kid. So I think about all of that trauma that my body has gone through, and that now in my old age at 42, like, I'm starting to feel that shit on my body. And if it wasn't for using marijuana, even some days, like, I'm like, God damn, I'm trying to get out of bed and I feel that shit. And this is something of, one, being able to talk about it and the good that it's done for us within our own families, within our own communities, to destigmatize those conversations, because we can't have those conversations as doctors, as law enforcement, as attorneys, as whatever, as judges. We can't have those conversations if we're not destigmatizing at home too. If we have those conversations at home and re-educate, like my son, I want my son to have a different relationship with marijuana culture. I want him to know that this is something that helps, and he has seen it, because he has seen me at my worst with my mental health, and now he sees me at my best and where I'm at and how I've been able to use it to manage.
Mm-hmm. So the acceptance part, I think, is the key fact, right? The higher acceptance, then we see every industry starting to open up a little bit more to it, right? Especially the ones that can make money, they're going to open up automatically. But the ones that are more secure and they need to really be convinced, such as the medical industry doctors, it's different. About a year or so ago, we did an event with the American College for Healthcare Executives at Methodist Hospital. I was there sitting on the same panel with Steve Love, who was part of the hospital council. Great guy, really nice guy. And the questions that we were up there answering all had to do with pharmaceuticals and regulatory compliance. None of it had to do with whether they agreed or disagreed this was a good thing. That wasn't even an issue. What was an issue was that, how do I get this to a patient in a federal hospital? Do I send this in a secure air, thing? Do I need to have this in a Ziploc bag? These are not questions, but these are questions we would think, oh, this is kind of a silly question, but it's not a silly question to them. And if you want them on board, you want their support, that's what we need to do when you start answering those questions. And I see that as the acceptance rate goes up, that these questions start coming up. Now they're having us at these locations where we weren't there 4 or 5 years ago, we're there now.
Yeah, I think that, when it comes to medicine, there's certain standards that we have to uphold. I think because doctors, one, are afraid of getting in trouble for stuff. Doctors are afraid of hurting people, right? And doctors are afraid of breaking the law. And so I think, like, once this cannabis treatments become more standard of care, you'll have more people on board with it. But that will come with more empirical evidence, more research, more forums, more patients discussing this. And then it becomes more like, okay, well, you have this patient, instead of hydrocodone or oxycodone, here is your other medicine you can use that we all approve of. And you're right, though, the packaging, how does my patient get it? Like, so, when my patients, I'm like, look, this is your prescription, this is your cannabis. I'm going to suggest to you what you should get, but if you want to get some other stuff from the dispensary, have at it, But, like, we wouldn't be able to prescribe how much you take, when you take it, you know what I'm saying? What exactly are you getting? How do you refill it? And so I think we have to change our idea of even what medicine is, because we're used to prescribing and directing. Well, with cannabis, though, it's more about you take whatever works for you and you take it how you can take it, right? So it's more of an open prescription, too, for people. then that's less control.
And it's also less risky. So thank you, friend. It's also less risky. Like people have told me, they're like, oh man, I think the big part with the stigmatization around marijuana culture is that there's this thing that because you smoke weed, you're lazy or you're a low life or you can't do shit. And I think I always tell people, I am the prime example of what weed can do to help you. Because let me tell you, I'm a whole ass business owner. I give back to my community. I'm a single parent raising a child that's in college, and
You're funky.
yeah, I definitely. And I think that because I have figured out what works for me, like you were talking about microdosing, I'm able to get through my day. I'm able to have more productive conversations. I'm able to not be as anxious when I'm going into a situation, especially working in fucking politics, because, it's crazy out in these streets. And that helps me be able to approach things a whole lot better and in a more productive way. I think about how when I came out of the Marine Corps, I was like, everyone fucking sucks and no one can do anything right. Because I came from being a drill instructor to being a civilian. That was like, y'all threw me out in the wild for real. I was not set up for success in any way. And I came out from the Marine Corps also with this stigma around marijuana because I was a substance abuse counseling officer. So I piss tested people that were trying to come into the Marine Corps or that were in the Marine Corps for using marijuana or other substances, but predominantly marijuana when folks would come back from leave and stuff. And so that shit lived in the back of my head. And as I learned more and more, and especially when I started using it, because even my mom was more progressive than I was, she was like, put this pomada, put this little, it'll help. And I'd be like, no, don't be putting that. It's got marijuana in it. And because of those stigmas that I brought from my childhood, from how I was growing up at home, from the military, because they're so anti-drug. And so it took me a lot to wrap my head around, like, I know that this works for other people, but it can also work for me. And again, going back to being able to have conversations around destigmatizing that you can be functional. Like, I remember not being able to get out of bed sometimes because of all the meds that the VA had me on. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the hell? Like, help.
Well, and that's what I think is interesting that you talked about was that the medicine and the pharmacological approach that doctors have, right? How much do I give to the person? And if it's different for everybody, then I'm not so sure I want to use it. And instead of just saying, go to the dispensary, try this and that and see how you feel, start small and go up from there. And they're not used to that. But we do have doctors like Dr. Sue Sisley, who has been doing some work on dosing. And in fact, Dr. Dorina Doche, who I think you and Dr. Dorina Doche, have you met her before? Wonderful woman. She's brilliant. And a lot of what you were just discussing when it comes to the prescription and prescribing, that is a complicated discussion. I'm down for that discussion anytime. Totally. I love that. But that is a big problem that actually needs to be solved in the medical community for us to continue advancing.
And Robert, just to follow up on that, it's not really my area. We start talking about the prescriptions and proper dosages and you could even go and we could start talking about different strains and what works best for this particular ailment or disease. And I know we're not talking about scheduling tonight, but the quicker that we can get marijuana moved from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, the sooner we can start doing more research. And I personally believe that we have a long way to go, and it's only through extensive research that we can better understand, our doctors can better understand how to best use the medicine and how to prescribe certain dosages and what strains. And but we've got to get it, the reason it's Schedule 1, we all know up here, is because somebody decided that it was highly addictive and had no medicinal value. And we move it over to Schedule 3, And I'm cautiously optimistic. I think there's a real good likelihood that happens in the next year or two. Then you're going to see a lot more research and doctors having a better feel for being able to prescribe it and what it actually can do for their patients.
Currently, if you have a Schedule II prescription, any Schedule I drug that you're on, you can cancel that Schedule II prescription. Am I correct? Do you come across that in your office? So, okay, there are certain SSI, what are they, SSRs, what do they call them? Right, but there's Schedule II drugs that you can prescribe. But if you get tested and you're on a Schedule I drug, they have to stop the Schedule II. Yeah. Now, when this gets rescheduled, there's a very good possibility that goes away. But my question to you is, do you come across that now currently?
Yeah, well, a lot of times, my issue will be like, a lot of times the people I take care of will be like, my doctor, even my, my doctors I work with who know me will be like, if you're, even if you're in the program, you pop up positive, I can't give you medicine. So I do take care of them because I know them in the program. I know it's legal, right? Like, so I can't see. Now, that's the only way I can do it, though, because now it's not an illicit drug. But if you come up positive in my practice and you're just taking cannabis and I'm giving you pain medicine, I can't take care of you anymore. Like the same way with cocaine or anything else or meth, Yeah, I think it'll help solve it. But remember, cannabis is still, once it becomes less scheduled, doctors feel more comfortable with it, period. It's period. You gotta understand, like right now with this whole opioid thing, and it's not just cannabis, it's all the drugs that people are getting popped with and people are overdosing with. So it's a big scare too. So I think once it becomes more open and, it becomes like, again, more part of the standard, then they'll be more, willing to do that. But many docs now, if you come positive one time, they're going to discharge you from their office.
And so it's very important for everybody to understand this, is that when we're talking about rescheduling, that's the executive branch. It's got nothing to do with the legislative branch. They're going to have to, at some point in time, deal with it through, as it goes down through bureaucracies. But all in all, there has to be a legislative process. And the only ones that I really know of that got any legs is probably Nancy Mace's, and I think that's the one that pretty much goes back to the states. And I've talked to a lot of people who, a good friend of mine who's a sheriff's association, and he's a big supporter of cannabis and to be legalized. He thinks it's caused more problems than it's ever helped out. And his big thing is first responders, right? Police officers, that he feels like they should be able to use this because of all the trauma they go through. And I agree with this. And he told me that going back to the states, he feels would probably be the best one. It's a really thought out bill. And so those two things are going to happen. You're going to have a legislative process go through, signed by the president. The president's going to have to reschedule or deschedule, and descheduling is going to be the key thing. And the biggest reason why is that if you keep it at Schedule III for too long, they're going to start getting legs on it, these pharmaceutical companies, right? Currently, your dispensaries have no fear. But if you do not deschedule this, they will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure, because they're going to pop in. I think they're waiting to get their hands on this and regulate, and then they're going to have all these big old grow houses and the regulations of cannabis, and it's going to be over for any small grower, any small dispensary at that point. And I don't think we should let that ever happen, because this plant should be able to be grown in your house like mushrooms and everything else, and there's no need for us to go through pharmaceutical. The problem is, like, they're the ones lobbying, it's their money going through, and they're the ones that control, because we have a messed up healthcare system that's bent on money and profit and not helping people. It's sad. And so that's going to be an even bigger fight, I think, trying to keep the plant.
I will guarantee you this. As soon as this gets rescheduled, and I told everybody about this on my team, we've talked about this on the board meetings, as soon as it happens, roll up your sleeves, guys. We got another fight ahead of us. There's no time to rest or anything like that. And I tell you personally, the push that the veteran community has had on cannabis has been a very loud voice. And we're getting louder, and we're getting a little bit more annoyed because of we have low recruitment numbers. 95% of the guys and girls that can get into the military right now are going to get pinged because they have access to cannabis that could keep them from getting in. Currently in the DOD, if you eat a poppy seed, they're telling you right now, don't eat poppy seed bagels. I shit you not, I just saw it. And I was kidding, and I'm not kidding with the fact that the DOD and the Army and the Marines and everything else, all of us vets will tell you this is exactly what it is. Their idea of solving something is just, well, don't do it.
I was at the Tipping Point conference yesterday in Austin, and I was talking with the woman there, and she had worked for the FBI for 8 years. She was in the process of going through and getting her security clearance, and she disclosed that she had used cannabis. I think she had purchased cannabis for her husband 3 years ago. Right? So it wasn't that she popped hot. It wasn't that they did a polygraph test and they caught her lying. The fact that she disclosed it, right? And you know, she was told that it was going to just be a slap on the wrist, like probation for 2 weeks, and then, you know, keep going on. And one day while she was giving a presentation, they called for her, and it just escorted her out the building, and that was the end of her career in the FBI. It just done right there. And because I was asking her how she got into the cannabis industry, and that was the beginning of her journey into the cannabis space. And it's just crazy how that stigma is impacting people's professions and in their lives like that. Like with me still being in the reserves, it's crazy because I can't consume. It's interesting because like throughout my career, I've been in 12 years now, and I've encountered many people that have come off active duty into the reserves. And you know, how old was I at the time? I was probably like 24, and there was a sergeant first class, so E7, that was 32, and he was having to have 2 hip replacements, and the grimace on his face anytime he had to sit down, and the way that he got by was it Bo Jackson? Bo Jackson that had that? Yeah. He's like, I got to get that same thing, and that's his, you know, way of coping with it. But he's 32, and just couldn't. All this medicine wasn't getting any type of relief, and there's so many people that I serve with currently that one of my soldiers that just got out. He's just like, sir, I can't re-up. My body just won't allow me to do it anymore. It's too much. Like even just helping at the range, like it's too much for me to be on my feet that long. So, I mean, that's one of the, you know, me and Jarrell have had many conversations about, you know, rescheduling versus descheduling, and I think that would be, as far as rescheduling, that would be one of the big benefits when it comes to the federal employees and for more doctors to get involved, because then at that point, I think the military would be willing to say, if you have a prescription, then, you know, you can consult.
Which is really weird, because when you get in, I'm gonna let you know, you guys know that when you get in, you're gonna have some friends that you're thinking to yourself, how in the hell did you get in? Like, for some reason, they've done every drug known to man and are still doing it, and they got in, and you were like, I don't understand how that happened. I was in for 5.5 years, spent 2.5 of the 5.5 years in Iraq in combat situations. And I was getting into the Secret Service when I was at A&M. I was finishing up my degree at A&M, and I was talking with the Bush School there, and I really wanted to get into the Secret Service because we did some of that stuff similar when I was in the Army. My infantry unit hunted down terrorist groups and terrorist cells, and we would, yeah, right? Like, it seemed like to fit. Boy, I'm so glad I'd never panned out, because they were asking me like, "Hey, Gabe, you ever smoked weed?" All smoked weed. Of course, I fell for it. I was like, "Yeah, I've smoked weed." What are you talking about? I'm 24 years old. Like, yeah. And you're like once or twice, and I'm like every day for like 2 years before I got in the Army. Yeah, that disqualified. They are like, "Yeah, you're not getting in." And I called the guy. He's like, "I don't know what happened." I was like, "You're a good guy. You should be in." And then it just never really panned out, which was a good thing in the long run, right? My job as a full-time dad and husband is the greatest job I've ever had in my life. And I love doing this. I love having these conversations because it's something that I think when people talk about cannabis, we get wrapped up in our stories. And that's important because it gives substance to the problem that's really at hand. But if we don't talk about what the problems are, such as the prescription issues, or as the confusion with the criminalization, paraphernalia, where does that go? Who's getting impacted, who's not getting impacted. We didn't even get a chance to talk about this, but there's a financial burden because most people that do get busted for it don't have a ton of money. And in order for them to get this off the record, they have to have a certain X amount of money that's stashed away. They probably don't have it. You know what? I'm 48, and we're a little bit further down the road. And I can tell you, it took a while to put money back. Life's expensive, So some of these guys, they get busted. Now I got to pay this, and that's not going to work out. I can't pay it, so it's on my record. I can't get a good job. Can't get into the military now, which would have offered me a great opportunity to get not only in shape, but to get a GI Bill, get an education, and get some base. We are destroying slowly our foundation of America. People just want to work hard and go. And now because of an herb, millions of these people aren't able to do this. Well, Texas has 1.8 million veterans who like to vote. And our veterans vote at an extremely high percentage versus the average American person. And I tell people all the time, you got to get out and vote, right? If you want to see change, get out and vote. If you want to see change, get out and talk to the people who are so negative against this. Find out why, right? Don't be afraid to speak up and say it's okay. But if we decide to be silent about it, then we should sleep in the bed that we made.
Wow. This has been very insightful, very amazing. Multiple vantage points when it comes to the industry and the plant and family lives. I think next time we can try and get into some of the business side of it. Because that's a whole other beast in itself. But I want to personally thank everyone that showed up and took the time to be here. It means a lot because we're able to take this content and help others. And that's the sole purpose of Bravery and Buds Dialogues, is to have this discussion about the plant and use that to help educate others and impact their lives in a positive way, especially for veterans. So as we go forward, make sure y'all stay tuned. Be on watch for our next dates that we have. The location will be to be determined. We really like this location, so we're gonna see if we can keep it here. Like we're gonna see if we can keep it here. But thank y'all for watching, and check us next time. And with that, we're out.